My name is Morgan Reed. I'm 27, and I never expected to find 99 strangers in my house when I returned early from a business trip. My key still worked in the lock, but nothing else was familiar. The noise hit me first, then the smell of unfamiliar food, and finally, my eyes locked on a massive banner hanging in my living room. Family means forever. I stood frozen as my boyfriend Ryan spotted me from across the room, his smile fading to panic. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had someone completely betray your trust. Trust me, you'll want to hear how I handled this. Ryan Harrison walked into my life 3 years ago at my college roommate's wedding. I was the maid of honor, he was a groomsman, and we were paired to walk down the aisle together. Something clicked between us immediately. His warm brown eyes, his infectious laugh, and the way he seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. By the end of the reception, we'd exchanged numbers, and within a week, we were dating. Our relationship progressed quickly, maybe too quickly, looking back. 8 months in, when my lease ended, Ryan suggested we move in together. It made perfect sense at the time. I had just received a promotion at Apex Marketing that required weekly travel, and Ryan's job as a high school history teacher meant he had summers off and more stability than I did. We had the perfect balance. I brought home the bigger paycheck, and he managed most of the household responsibilities when I was traveling. The house we shared wasn't just any house. It was my grandmother's craftsman-style home that I'd inherited when she passed away 2 years before meeting Ryan. The house held special memories for me. Summer afternoons reading in the window, seat holiday gatherings around the large dining table, the garden my grandmother had lovingly tended. When I brought Ryan to see it for the first time, he fell in love with it too, especially the spacious living room and the large backyard. "This place could host so many people," he'd remarked, running his hand along the dining room table that seated 12. "It's perfect for family gatherings." I had nodded absently, not thinking much of it. Family gatherings weren't really my thing. As an only child who lost both parents in a car accident during my sophomore year of college, my concept of family had shrunk considerably. My grandmother had been my rock until cancer took her too. Now, my family consisted of a few close friends, and, I thought, Ryan. Looking back, there were signs I should have noticed. Ryan received phone calls he'd step outside to take, claiming they were work-related, though they often came during evening hours or weekends. There were receipts for purchases I didn't recognize, extra groceries, new folding chairs, even a second refrigerator he'd installed in the garage for overflow. When I questioned these things, Ryan always had a reasonable explanation. The extra groceries were for a school function. The chairs were on sale. The refrigerator was a great deal he couldn't pass up. I trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? He was charming, supportive, and seemed to genuinely care about making our house a home. When I'd return from business trips, the house would be spotless, sometimes with small improvements, a new plant, rearranged furniture, or a minor repair completed. I appreciated these gestures, never suspecting they might be part of a larger pattern. My most recent business trip was to Chicago for a major client presentation. It was scheduled for 5 days, but when we wrapped up a day early, I decided to surprise Ryan by coming home on Thursday instead of Friday. I was excited. We hadn't had a free weekend together in almost a month. I stopped to buy his favorite wine and a bouquet of sunflowers, imagining his face when I walked through the door unexpected. The drive from the airport to our home in the suburbs took 40 minutes, and I spent the time planning our bonus evening. Maybe order from that new Thai place, watch the movie we'd been talking about, and enjoy some long overdue time together. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed several unfamiliar cars parked on the street. Our neighbor must be having some kind of gathering, I thought. I used my key to unlock the front door, planning to call out "surprise" to Ryan. Instead, I was the one who received the surprise of my life. As I pushed open the door, still holding my suitcase with one hand and the flowers and wine with the other, I stepped into what felt like an alternate reality where my house was no longer my own. The noise hit me first. Dozens of conversations, laughter, music playing from somewhere in the back of the house. Then the smells, unfamiliar cooking odors, perfumes, the distinct scent of too many bodies in one space. But it was the visual that truly stunned me. My living room, normally arranged with my grandmother's antique furniture and my carefully chosen decor, had been transformed. Folding tables lined the walls, loaded with food and drinks. My furniture had been pushed against the walls or removed, entirely, replaced with folding chairs and unfamiliar couches. And the people, so many people. Adults chatting in groups, children running between rooms, teenagers lounging on my furniture. For a moment, I genuinely wondered if I had somehow entered the wrong house. Had I driven to the wrong address on autopilot? But no, the key had worked, and beneath the chaos, I could still recognize the bones of my grandmother's home. As I stood frozen in the entryway, I noticed unfamiliar photos hanging on my walls. Family portraits of people I'd never seen. A large genealogical chart was taped across one entire wall with dozens of names connected by lines. And prominently displayed above it all, a massive banner reading, "Family means forever," in bold red letters. A woman in her 60s turned and noticed me first. I recognized her vaguely as Ryan's aunt, whom I'd met briefly at a restaurant once. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Morgan, is that you?" she asked, loud enough that several nearby conversations paused. More faces turned toward me, expressions of confusion spreading. I couldn't find my voice. My grip tightened on the wine bottle as I pushed further into the crowd, looking for Ryan. People stepped aside, some murmuring questions, others simply staring. I caught snippets of conversations. "That's the girlfriend? She wasn't supposed to be here until tomorrow. Did Ryan know she was coming early?" I heard someone refer to the annual gathering and felt a chill run down my spine. Annual? This had happened before? In my house? I pushed my way through the living room into the kitchen, which was even more chaotic. Women I'd never met were cooking at my stove, using my dishes, opening and closing my refrigerator with the casual familiarity of ownership. A group of older men sat around my kitchen island playing cards on a table runner I'd never seen before. A child, maybe 6 years old, ran into my legs, looked up at me with no recognition, and then ran off again. Teenagers were sprawled across my staircase, blocking my way upstairs. I excused myself repeatedly, growing more frustrated as I tried to navigate through my own home. When I finally made it upstairs, I found the door to my bedroom locked. Knocked, first politely, then more forcefully as panic and anger rose in my chest. "Just a minute," came a voice from inside. Ryan's voice. The door opened, and there he stood, my boyfriend of 3 years, looking at me with an expression of shock that quickly shifted to something else. Annoyance? "You're early," he said, as if I'd broken some rule by returning to my own home. "What is happening?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Who are all these people in our house?" Ryan stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind him. He ran a hand through his hair and gave me that smile, the one he used when trying to downplay something. "It's just the annual family reunion," he said casually. "No big deal. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd be in Chicago." I stared at him, struggling to process his words. Annual family reunion, in my house, without my knowledge. "How many people are here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not many," Ryan shrugged. "Just the core family, 99 including the kids. 99 people. In my house. Without my permission." "This has happened before?" I managed to ask, though I already knew the answer. The look on Ryan's face confirmed it. Not guilt, but frustration at being caught. That's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate deception that had been going on right under my nose. Ryan grabbed my elbow and steered me toward our bedroom door, opening it quickly and pulling me inside. I barely recognized our room. The furniture had been rearranged, my things pushed to one side. A portable crib stood where my reading chair usually sat. A woman I'd never seen before was changing a baby's diaper on our bed. "Trisha, can you give us a minute?" Ryan asked, his voice tense but controlled. The woman gathered the baby and diaper supplies, giving me a curious look before slipping out of the room. As soon as the door closed, I turned to Ryan. "Explain, now." My voice was surprisingly steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Ryan sighed heavily, as if I was the one being unreasonable. "It's not a big deal, Morgan. My family gets together once a year. This is the 3rd year we've hosted it here." 3 years? I repeated, my mind racing. Ryan and I had lived together for just over 2.5 years. "So, pretty much since you moved in?" Ryan nodded, avoiding my eyes. "The first 2 years were scheduled when you were on business trips. This year's gathering was supposed to end before you got back tomorrow." "You planned this around my work schedule? Deliberately kept it from me?" I could hear my voice rising. "You're always gone," Ryan said defensively. "The house sits empty. Family is important, Morgan. You know that." "I don't even know these people." I gestured toward the door. "Because you never make an effort to know my family," Ryan countered. "This is the family covenant weekend. It's sacred to us." "The what?" Ryan's expression changed to one of patronizing patience. "The family covenant. It's our philosophy. Family above all else. Family means forever. My great-grandparents started it. We all come together once a year to renew our commitment to each other. All 99 of you? It's actually 105 with the new babies, but some couldn't make it this year," Ryan corrected me, missing the point entirely. "Look, my family is different from most. We stay connected. We prioritize our relationships. We support each other." I walked to the window and looked out at the backyard, now filled with more strangers barbecuing on grills I'd never seen before. My garden had been partially trampled by children playing some game with water balloons. "So, you've been hosting this covenant gathering in my house without telling me? For 3 years?" I turned back to face him. "Our house," Ryan corrected. "And yes, you're always traveling. It didn't seem like a big deal." "Where are all these people staying?" I demanded. Ryan hesitated. "Well, some are at hotels, but the immediate family stays here." "How immediate?" "Just my parents, siblings, their kids, and a few of the elders, who shouldn't be in hotels. Maybe 30 people?" I pushed past him and walked to our guest room, throwing open the door to find it transformed into a dormitory-style setup with air mattresses covering every inch of floor space. My grandmother's antique desk had been pushed into a corner, covered with toiletries and baby supplies. Next, I checked my home office. The desk where I worked on my marketing presentations had been moved aside. My expensive computer equipment was nowhere to be seen. In its place was a makeshift nursery with 3 portable cribs. "Where's my equipment?" I asked, a new panic rising. "It's safe in the garage," Ryan said quickly. I wrapped it all carefully. The babies needed a quiet space, and you weren't supposed to be working this weekend anyway. I stood in the doorway of my unrecognizable office, trembling with a mixture of shock and rage. A middle-aged woman I'd never met brushed past me with a baby on her hip. "Excuse me," she said, not unkindly, but with the air of someone who belonged there more than I did. "The little ones need their nap." I stepped aside automatically, then hated myself for doing so. This was my house. As we returned to the hallway, an elderly woman approached. Ryan's grandmother, I realized from photos I'd seen. "Ryan, dear, who's this?" she asked. looking at me with open curiosity. "Grandma, this is Morgan. My girlfriend? I've told you. About her." The old woman's eyes narrowed. "The busy one. Always working." She turned to me. "Young lady, family should come first. Ryan says you don't understand that." Before I could respond, she continued, "It's selfish to be upset about sharing your home. Family needs space to grow." I looked at Ryan, expecting him to defend me. Instead, he nodded along with his grandmother's words. That's when I realized I wasn't just dealing with a surprise party or a minor boundary violation. This was a systematic invasion, conducted with planning and purpose by someone I thought I could trust. And apparently, it had been happening for years. I needed air. I pushed past Ryan and his grandmother, ignoring their calls to come back, and made my way downstairs through the crowd. I slipped out the back door onto the patio, only to find more of Ryan's relatives there. They had set up a massive cookout in my garden. The meticulously maintained flower beds my grandmother had planted, that I had carefully preserved, were now trampled by dozens of feet. I found a corner of the yard relatively unoccupied and pulled out my phone. Calling my best friend Samantha, "Sam, you won't believe what's happening," I said when she answered. "Morgan? Aren't you supposed to be in Chicago?" she asked. "I came home early to surprise Ryan," I explained, my voice breaking. "Instead, I found 99 people in my house. His entire extended family is here for some annual reunion thing he's been hosting without telling me." "Wait, what? In your house? Without asking you?" "Yes, they've rearranged everything. There are people sleeping in every room. They moved my work equipment to the garage. They've taken over completely." "That's insane," Samantha said. "What did Ryan say?" "He's acting like I'm overreacting, like this is totally normal." As I was talking, I noticed a woman approaching me, Ryan's sister Amanda, whom I'd met twice before at holidays. I told Samantha I'd call her back. "Morgan," Amanda said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ryan said you're upset. I thought I should explain about our family traditions." "I don't need explanations," I said firmly. "I need people to leave my house." Amanda's smile tightened. "Ryan said you wouldn't understand family values. When you don't come from a strong family unit, it can be hard to appreciate what we have." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Excuse me? Ryan's told us all about your situation. No siblings, parents gone, just a grandmother who left you this big house. It must be lonely. Our family can fill that void for you." My blood ran cold. "Ryan discussed my personal history with all of you?" "Of course," Amanda said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "We're family. We know all about your job too, the travel schedule, the salary. Ryan's so proud of your success." The violation I felt deepened. My private life, my finances, my personal history, all had been shared without my consent. Before I could respond to Amanda, Ryan's mother approached, her face a mask of concern. "Morgan, dear," she said, taking my hand uninvited. "I understand this is a shock. Ryan wanted to ease you into our family traditions gradually. By lying to me for 3 years?" I pulled my hand away. "Not lying, dear. Just waiting for the right time. Ryan's been preparing us for years for when you become part of the family properly." "What does that mean?" Ryan's mother smiled. "The engagement, of course. Ryan's been saving for a ring. We've already discussed hosting the wedding here. The backyard is perfect once we expand the patio." I stared at her, speechless. Ryan and I had never seriously discussed marriage, and they were planning to renovate my house? "This house is the perfect gathering place for the family," she continued, oblivious to my shock. "So central for everyone. We've been talking about making this the permanent location for all our events, not just the annual covenant meeting." I spotted Ryan approaching across the yard and strode toward him, rage building with every step. He must have seen something in my face because he actually took a step back. "You've been planning to propose?" I demanded, loud enough that conversations nearby paused. "Your family knows about this, but I don't?" Ryan glanced around nervously. "Morgan, can we discuss this? Privately. Like how you privately discussed my salary with your family, or privately made plans to use my house as your family's permanent gathering place." People were definitely watching now. Ryan's face flushed with embarrassment. "You're overreacting," he said dismissively. "It's just work stress." "Morgan travels a lot," he explained to the onlookers. "She gets tense when her schedule changes." Several of his relatives nodded sympathetically. A few even chuckled. They were laughing at my distress, in my own home, while defending the person who had betrayed my trust. "This isn't about work stress," I said, my voice shaking. "This is about you lying to me for our entire relationship, invading my space, sharing my private information, and making plans for my home and my life without my consent." Ryan rolled his eyes. "This is what real families do, Morgan. They share spaces and lives. They don't maintain rigid boundaries like you do." As his family members around us nodded in agreement, I realized I was outnumbered in my own home. The weight of their collective gaslighting pressed down on me. For a moment, I almost questioned myself. Was I the unreasonable one? Then I remembered. This was my grandmother's house. My name was on the deed, and no one had the right to take that from me. I pushed past Ryan and went back into the house, locking myself in the small bathroom off the kitchen. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I splashed water on my face and tried to control my breathing as panic threatened to overwhelm me. I texted Samantha. "It's worse than I thought. They've been planning to make my house their permanent family headquarters. Ryan's been sharing all my personal info with them." Her response came quickly. "That's a major violation of trust. Document everything. Take photos. This doesn't sound right." She was right. I needed evidence. Taking a deep breath, I unlocked the bathroom door and slipped out my phone camera ready. I moved through my house like a stranger, documenting the invasion. The living room where furniture had been rearranged or removed. The kitchen where unfamiliar people used my things without a second thought. I caught one woman going through my mail that had been piled on a side table. Upstairs was worse. I found a teenage girl I'd never met trying on my jewelry in front of my bedroom mirror. In my closet, several women were examining my clothes, pulling out items and holding them. "Up! The blue would look good on you, Melissa," one said to another. "Ryan said she never wears it anyway." I retreated before they saw me, feeling sick. In the hallway, I overheard Ryan talking to his brother in what they thought was a private conversation. "She'll get over it," Ryan was saying. "She has nowhere else to go. All her friends are busy with their own families." "You sure about this one, bro?" his brother asked. "She seems pretty territorial." "She'll adapt," Ryan said confidently. "Once we're married, it'll be different. The house will legally be family property then. Mom and Dad can move into the downstairs guest room like we discussed." I froze, recording the conversation on my phone. They were planning to move his parents into my house? My mind flashed to the numerous times Ryan had casually mentioned adding his name to the house deed for insurance purposes. I had always put it off, not seeing the urgency. Now I understood. Moving silently away from their conversation, I continued my documentation. In the dining room, I found a sheet of paper titled Annual Contributions with family members' names and dollar amounts listed. My name was at the top with the highest amount, money I had never agreed to provide. In the living room, I spotted a young woman wearing a distinctive opal necklace, my grandmother's, one of the few keepsakes I had of her. I approached, trying to keep my voice steady. "Excuse me, that necklace you're wearing, it's my grandmother's." The woman, Ryan's cousin, I would later learn, barely glanced at me. "Ryan said we could use anything in the house. It's not like you wear this stuff." That's a family heirloom, I insisted. Please return it. She rolled her eyes, but didn't move to take it off. We're family now, too. Ryan says you need to learn to share. I stood there, a strange calm settling over me as something inside me finally snapped. This wasn't just about a surprise party or even an unauthorized family reunion. This was a systematic attempt to take over my life, my space, my possessions, orchestrated by the person I had trusted most. As I moved through the rooms, I found more evidence. A key rack near the back door with multiple copies of my house keys labeled with different family members' names. A folder containing renovation plans for my house, with notes about expanding the patio and converting my home office into a permanent nursery. A family newsletter mentioning future gatherings at the Reed Harrison homestead, with dates already, planned for the next 2 years. I realized that Ryan hadn't just betrayed my trust with this one event. He had been methodically laying the groundwork to subsume my life into his family's. The house I had inherited, the sanctuary that connected me to my grandmother, was being taken over inch by inch while I traveled for the job that paid the mortgage. Standing in what used to be my quiet reading nook, now crowded with strangers' suitcases, I made my decision. This ends now. I retreated to the small guest bathroom, the only space that seemed untouched by the invasion. With shaking hands, I called Lauren, the legal counsel at my company. We weren't close friends, but she had always been kind to me, and I knew she worked with real estate law before joining our corporate team. Lauren, it's Morgan Reed. I have a situation and need some legal advice, I said when she answered. On a Thursday evening? Must be serious, she replied. I explained the situation as concisely as I could. Lauren listened without interrupting. The house is solely in your name, correct? She asked when I finished. Yes. I inherited it from my grandmother. Ryan's name isn't on anything. Then legally, you have every right to ask these people to leave. They are in your home without your permission, regardless of what your boyfriend told them. What about my belongings they're using? Document everything, Lauren advised. Take photos of anything missing or damaged. If necessary, you can file a police report for unauthorized use of your property. With Lauren's reassurance backing me, I continued gathering evidence, taking photos and videos of the state of my home and the uninvited guests. I made a quick inventory of valuable items I'd noticed being used by Ryan's family members. Next, I called the local police non-emergency line. I explained that I had returned home to find numerous uninvited people in my house who were refusing to leave. The dispatcher assured me they would send an officer to assist with the situation. While waiting, I used my phone to access my home security system app, which Ryan apparently didn't know about. I changed all the passwords and codes, effectively locking him out of the system. Then I texted 3 colleagues who lived nearby, asking if they could come over as witnesses. 2 responded immediately that they were on their way. With my plan in place, I took a deep breath and returned to the main gathering. The noise level had increased as evening approached. Someone had turned up music, and the drinking had clearly been going on for hours. I spotted Ryan in the living room, laughing with his brothers as if nothing was wrong. I walked to the center of the room and cleared my throat. When that didn't get attention, I picked up a serving spoon and tapped it against a glass, the way someone might before giving a toast. Conversations gradually quieted as people turned to look at me. Hello, everyone, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. For those who don't know me, I'm Morgan Reed. This is my house. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ryan started toward me, but I held up my hand to stop him. I understand you were all invited here by Ryan. Unfortunately, Ryan didn't have the authority to invite you. I never gave permission for this gathering, and I was intentionally kept in the dark about it. Ryan reached my side, his face flushed with anger. Morgan, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself. I ignored him and continued addressing the crowd. Everyone not personally invited by me has 30 minutes to gather your belongings and leave my property." "You can't do this," Ryan hissed. "These are my family members." "Watch me," I replied, pulling up the property deed on my phone and showing it to him. "My name, my house, my rules." Just then, there was a knock at the front door. Perfect timing. I opened it to find a police officer standing on my porch, with my colleagues Katie and Michael pulling up to the curb behind him. "Ms. Reed?" the officer asked. "We received your call about uninvited guests?" "Yes, officer. Thank you for coming." I gestured to the crowded house behind me. "These people are in my home without my permission, and some have been using my personal property without consent." The officer stepped inside, surveying the scene. Ryan rushed forward. "Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. I live here too, and I invited my family for our annual reunion." "Is your name on the lease or deed, sir?" the officer asked calmly. Ryan hesitated. "No, but..." "Then Ms. Reed has the legal right to ask people to leave her property," the officer stated firmly. He turned to address the now silent crowd. "Folks, I'm going to have to ask you all to begin packing up. The homeowner has requested you vacate the premises." The next 30 minutes were chaotic. Ryan's family members alternated between disbelief, anger, and attempts to convince me to reconsider. His mother tearfully asked how I could be so cruel. His grandmother called me selfish again. His brother suggested I would never understand real family values. Throughout it all, I stood my ground, with the officer's presence backing me up and my colleagues witnessing everything. Katie quietly helped me reclaim items I pointed out, including my grandmother's opal necklace from the resistant cousin. Ryan's family began a reluctant exodus, gathering their belongings and filing out of my house. Ryan fluttered between them, apologizing, trying to smooth things over, promising this wasn't the end of the tradition. I noticed he was packing a bag too. "Where do you think you're going?" I asked when we were momentarily alone in the bedroom. "With my family," he said stiffly. "Since you've made it clear they're not welcome here. I'm glad we understand each other." As Ryan joined his family outside, I made a call to a 24-hour locksmith service. They promised to be there within the hour. Ryan noticed the locksmith van when it arrived and rushed back to the front door where I stood. "You're changing the locks?" he asked incredulously. "What about my things?" "You can come back tomorrow at noon with a police escort to collect your belongings," I said calmly. "I'll pack them for you." "Morgan, this is ridiculous. We can talk about this." "We're beyond talking, Ryan. You betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way possible. You invaded my space, shared my personal information, used my resources without permission, and planned to essentially take over my home and my life." The locksmith approached with his toolkit, and Ryan finally seemed to realize I was serious. His face hardened. "My family was right about you," he said. "You'll never understand what real family means." I watched as he walked away to join the last of his relatives loading into cars. The enormity of what had just happened began to sink in, but alongside the pain was something else, a sense of power I hadn't felt in a long time. I had reclaimed my space, my boundaries, and my self-respect. As the locksmith worked on the front door, I stood in the entryway of my grandmother's house, my house, and took the first deep breath I'd had since walking through that door hours earlier. The silence after everyone left was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed, in a house that was unnervingly quiet after the chaos of the previous day. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the disarray left behind by Ryan's family. Furniture out of place, unfamiliar, items scattered about, the lingering smell of too many people in too small a space. I made myself a cup of coffee and walked slowly through each room, taking inventory of what needed to be cleaned, rearranged, reclaimed. The task seemed overwhelming, but with each item I returned to its proper place, I felt a small piece of myself returning too. In the dining room, I found a notebook Ryan had left behind. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it to find detailed plans written in his familiar handwriting. Plans for gradually converting my home into a family compound. Notes about which relatives might move in permanently after our inevitable marriage. A timeline for adding his name to the deed, with a reminder to approach when Morgan is stressed. About work. More likely to agree without reading details. The coldness of the calculation took my breath away. This hadn't been a misunderstanding or a one-time boundary violation. This had been a systematic campaign to take over my life, my space, my independence, all while I worked to pay for the very house he planned to appropriate. As promised, Ryan arrived at noon with a police escort to collect his belongings. I had packed his clothes and personal items into boxes and suitcases, which Michael helped me carry to the front porch. Ryan barely looked at me as he loaded them into his brother's truck. I handed him an envelope containing a detailed list of items I expected to be returned. My grandmother's jewelry, books he had borrowed for family members, and various household items that had disappeared. "I've documented everything," I said quietly. "Lauren from legal is helping me draft a formal request for the return of my property." Ryan's face flushed with anger. "This isn't over, Morgan. You've hurt a lot of people." "No, Ryan. You hurt people by making promises about resources that weren't yours to give. Please don't contact me again except through Lauren." After he left, Samantha arrived with cleaning supplies and takeout food. She had taken the day off work to help me restore order to my home. As we cleaned, she listened to the full story. "I still can't believe he did this," she said, helping me move my reading chair back to its proper place. 3 years of lying. To you. "The scary part is how I missed all the signs," I admitted. "The extra groceries, the mysterious phone calls, the new furniture appearing. I was so busy with work, I didn't see what was happening in my own home." Over the next few days, more friends came to help. Katie and Michael helped me reinstall my office equipment and restore my workspace. Lauren assisted with legal paperwork to ensure Ryan and his family couldn't claim any rights to my property or possessions. I filed a police report documenting the unauthorized use of my home and the items that were still missing. 2 weeks after the invasion, as my friends now called it, I started seeing a therapist to understand how I'd missed the red flags in my relationship with Ryan. Dr. Patterson helped me recognize the pattern of small boundary violations that had escalated over time. He started with tiny things, I realized during one session. Moving a plant, rearranging a bookshelf, things I'd notice but wouldn't object to because they seemed so minor. Then it grew to furniture, then whole rooms when I was traveling. He was testing how much he could take without me pushing back. "That's a common pattern in controlling relationships," Dr. Patterson nodded. "The gradual erosion of boundaries. Each violation is small enough that objecting seems petty, but over time, the cumulative effect is a complete loss of autonomy." As weeks turned into months, I continued the process of reclaiming my space and my life. I installed a state-of-the-art security system with cameras and changed all the locks. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected while with Ryan, rebuilding my support network. Ryan attempted to contact me several times, alternating between apologies and accusations. Each time, I referred him to Lauren, who eventually sent a formal cease and desist letter that finally silenced him. 3 months after the family covenant disaster, my home finally felt like mine again. I had repainted walls, rearranged furniture, and replaced items that couldn't be recovered from Ryan's family. The garden was replanted, the house refreshed. More importantly, I had established firm boundaries in all areas of my life. At work, I negotiated a more balanced travel schedule. At home, I became more intentional about who I invited into my space. I learned the power of saying no without guilt or explanation. 6 months later, I hosted a small dinner party, my first gathering since the incident. Just 8 people, all close friends who had supported me through the aftermath. As we sat around my grandmother's dining table, sharing food and laughter, I realized something profound. "You know," I said as conversation paused, "Ryan's family had this saying, 'Family means forever.' They used it to justify taking whatever they wanted, as if the label of family granted unlimited access and entitlement." My friends nodded, listening intently. "But I've realized something about family, real family, chosen family. It's not about possession or control. It's about respect. It's about honoring boundaries as sacred. Real love makes room for individuality. It doesn't try to consume it." Samantha raised her glass. "To boundaries and to chosen family." As we toasted, I felt the last piece of healing fall into place. My home was my sanctuary again, but more importantly, I had found the sanctuary within myself. I had learned to trust my instincts, to value my needs, and to recognize when someone was taking rather than giving. I still believe in connection, in sharing my life with others. But now I know that genuine connection must be built on mutual respect. That's the foundation that truly means forever. Have you ever had someone violate your boundaries like Ryan did to me? Or have you discovered the importance of setting clear boundaries in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about reclaiming your power. Remember, true family, whether blood or chosen, respects your boundaries and honors your autonomy. Thanks, you for listening to my journey, and may you find the courage to protect your own sacred spaces.